Capitol tonight. This weekend, the Democratic Rural Conference will meet in Niagara Falls to conduct a straw poll gauging the support within the party for candidates running in contested primaries. This year, the Democrats are all but decided on a candidate for all but 2 of the statewide offices. There are Dems duking it out over the nod for the lieutenant governor and also for attorney general. But the AG race is far more contentious of the 2 primaries, with 5 candidates actively campaigning and 2 more considering a run. Last week, we caught up with 2 of those hopefuls, Senator Eric Schneiderman and attorney Sean Coffey. We hope to speak with all of the prospective Democratic candidates before this weekend's poll. Tonight, we're joined by a 3rd contender, Westchester Assemblyman Richard Brodsky. He joins me in the studio tonight to discuss his campaign. Thanks for your time.
Glad to be here.
Good. So give us the brief overview of why you're running for this job.
Well, what record I've compiled is focused on reform of Albany institutions, the authority reform bill being the best example. At a time when the public is crying out, and rightly so, for major institutional change, for the change in the way we do business, I can talk to that, I think, intelligently. And in the end, what I offer that distinguishes me from the other candidates is a commitment to making the Attorney General's office the center of the discussion about reform in New York, the epicenter, the place in which New Yorkers can go to decide what their government's going to look like, what their social contract's going to be. A transitional vision of the office, a transformational vision, and that, I think, is the distinguishing quality.
So how do you explain to voters, you've been in Albany how many years now?
27.
Okay, so that's an awfully long time. Almost as long as I've been alive.
Well,
just kidding. But no, a long time. Seriously, how do you explain to voters, you're angry with Albany, yes, I am part of Albany, but I want to change Albany, and how do you make that distinction?
But I've already changed it, and I want to go back to the notion that if you care about the MTA, or the Thruway Authority, or ORDA, or any of the authorities in Long Island, LIPA, the biggest reform of state government in 30 years came out of the work I've done as chairman of the committee with jurisdiction over these Soviet-style bureaucracies.
Yep.
So I bring that record in. The question of whether I can do that is a question, first of all, of what I've done, second of all, of what the vision is. I want to transform the Office of Attorney General into the heart of the fight for reform. What you get back in the political terms is sort of an Albany insider critique, which is interesting.
Yep.
It's coming from a couple of the folks in the Attorney General's
race. The folks who are not insiders, well, they say, right? They're not part of Albany.
But the problem with that is when Democrats adopt the worst part of the rhetoric of the Tea Party movement, the distrust of incumbents per se, it's not just an attack on me, but it's an attack on Andrew Cuomo, as much as he and I are parallel in our experience as part of the Albany government. The question isn't what our type is, what our generalized stereotype is. It's what we've done as individuals, what we can do. I'll stand on my record against anybody as bringing real change and real reform to Albany institutions, and I'm glad to have the debate about my record.
Okay, but when you say that, it sounds to me like you're accusing some of these people. I mean, right now what we're looking at is a field of 5 people that we know are out there, 2 of which I mentioned at the top of the show. There's also Nassau County DA Kathleen Rice, who's actually been quite overt in her statements to party leaders about needing an outsider, quote-unquote, for reform, and Eric Dinallo, the former state superintendent, insurance superintendent. That sounds to me like you're saying, if you attack me, you're also attacking Andrew Cuomo, who's an Albany
I'm not
insider.
going to get into the rhetoric of attack or accusation. This is what I can say with some authority, that the critique, the use of the phrase, Albany insider, is, if it's used by Democrats, it's going to tar every Democrat. I don't care if you're an insider, an outsider, an upstater, a downstater, male, female. The issue here is, can you help reconnect the government to the people who elect it? And that's based upon a record, a vision, character, temperament, and the kind of things that I want to be judged on individually.
Okay.
And I assume Ms. Rice wants people judged on individually.
Do you feel like you are going to be able to investigate your colleagues in the legislature?
I'm going to be able to investigate anybody who does wrong, as I've done, be it the New York Yankees, be it Mayor Bloomberg, be it Jet Stadium,
but never your
be it the MTA.
Yes, you have a very extensive record. It's true. The Yankees are probably, you are one of their least favorite people.
Well, I'm in good company. The answer is, with the law, I have followed the facts to conclusions that made people uncomfortable if the facts justified it. I've been accused all my life of being somewhat on the outside. There's a certain degree of irony in an attempt to paint me as part of a system that doesn't function. If you cared about the way the MTA functions, or about the Yankee Stadium deal, or about the Thruway, the Erie Canal deal, if you care about litigation on Indian Point or on subpoenas, when I issued subpoenas, I've got a very strong record on that. No one is going to successfully stereotype me. If there are criticisms of my record, things I've done, great. Those ought to be raised. But the notion that you can go out and smack any Democrat who's held office and not smack Andrew Cuomo as well is politically naive. And if the Democrats are going to survive a very difficult year, we're going to have something positive to say about the way people live their lives in this state, and not just criticize each other with stereotypes.
Isn't it ironic, though, that in order to get on the ballot, you need the support of party insiders? I mean, everybody's courting party insiders, right? You're having your colleagues who are endorsing you. Eric Schneiderman has his Senate colleagues. Susie Oppenheimer might be endorsing everyone. I mean, but you need to court those insiders,
sure,
and at once also slam those insiders.
No,
it just seems...
I will not get drawn in to a slam this guy, accuse that guy, this guy's bad. Nobody in the state of New York needs an attorney general skilled at attacking other people. What they need is an attorney general with a vision of the law as a tool to make people's lives better. I'm going to be talking as Attorney General about property tax reform. I'm going to be talking about a right to privacy. I'm going to be talking about continuing to get state authorities to shape up. The things that I've already done, I will already do. If you're asking me to critique someone else's critique of me, when they make that of me individually, I'll respond.
Okay.
When they make it as a class attack on insiders, it's not going to work.
Okay, you ran for this office briefly, or not that briefly,
no, not that briefly.
In 2006,
yes.
And you had to drop out because of a health problem.
Not mine. I had a family situation with my daughter's
right.
Getting a kidney transplant.
Who's become an activist.
She is. She'll be up
issues.
in Albany seeking to change the laws on that tomorrow.
And
so
how old is she now?
She's now 18 and a freshman at NYU and doing great.
But actually, you wanted to donate, if I remember this correctly, you wanted to donate a kidney, but then it turned out you had some kidney issues yourself. So your health now is okay.
Terrific. And never really was an issue except for the purposes of donation. But if you're asking me about the race in 2006, this time we're going to get through it and do the right thing and win it, because in the end people are going to be looking for a candidate who can talk about the relationship between them and their government, and I'm going to do that well and truly.
But if you lose, you're out of a job, period. I mean, you have to give up your assembly
That's
seat
correct.
In order to run, and you're ready to do that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is an opportunity of a kind I wanted 4 years ago. Circumstances took it from me. This time we're going to pursue it. We're off to a fabulous start. I'm really the only one running a statewide campaign with support in rural New York as much as there is on Long Island or in New York City. I'm really the only one who's been able to put together a vision of the office which responds to people's needs across the state.
I don't know what that means. You're the only one. I mean, you've got Eric Dinella has supported upstate, and Sean Coffey just went up on the airwaves with an ad. He's putting $2 million in his campaign.
Look at where support is coming from so far in this race. What I've done in the last 2 weeks is announce major support in the St. Lawrence area, in southern Jamestown, southern New York, and in Binghamton, in Long Island, in New York City, in Westchester, in the Hudson Valley. What I'm suggesting isn't that everyone isn't trying. What I'm suggesting is that if one is going to run and win as a Democrat in a very difficult year, one's going to have to show that one resonates with a record and with a vision that applies statewide. We're very pleased with the way this campaign's gotten off the ground.
Can you get on the ballot at the convention?
Sure.
If you don't, will you petition
No,
your way
I'm going to
in?
get on the ballot in the primary. Those votes, the 25% that one needs, I think is, let's just say, well within reach. If we talk about the people and the commitments I've already had, we're probably ahead of anybody else in the race.
Okay, but if you don't,